Yo, Shortbox Nation, this is Botter, and I'm here to tell you right now that con season starts early this year with the return of Northeast Florida's premier anime, comic book, and sci-fi event, Collective Con. That's right, Northeast Florida's largest pop culture convention returns for its 10th year on March 8th through the 10th at the Prime Osborne Center in Jacksonville, Florida. 10 years of Collective Con, they're pulling all the stops out to make sure this is a can't-miss event. And the guest list they got going, don't even get me started on the guest list. I mean, they've got A-list celebrity guests and voice actors from some of your favorite movies, anime, and video games like Elijah Wood and Sean Ashton, Ray Park, Trisha Helfer, Ross Marquand, Max Middleman, and Bo-Katan herself will be there, Katie Sackhoff. Tell me what other convention is giving you the opportunity to meet Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings, Darth Maul, and One Punch Man all under the same roof. Only at Collective Con. And if you're looking to get some of your favorite comics signed, or if you want to get an original sketch from some of the best comic artists in the world, well, you're in luck, because there'll be plenty of comic and creator guests there, like DC comic artist extraordinaire Clay Mann, Harvey Award-nominated illustrator John Taylor Christopher, Marvel and DC cover artist Chris Stevens, and acclaimed Star Wars author Timothy Zahn. They'll all be at Collective Con this year. And if you're looking to bring the family, or if you want to make a weekend out of it, you're in luck, because there'll be so much going on at Collective Con that weekend in the form of vendors, fan panels, video game tournaments, cosplay contests, after parties, and a bunch of fan events. You can purchase single and 3-day weekend passes now using the link in this episode's show notes, or by going to collectivecon.com to book your tickets and hotel. Buy your tickets now, and I'll see you at Collective Con, March 8th through the 10th. Now let's start the show. In this episode of The Short Box,
I was on a deadline one day in April of 2001, and I look out the front window of my store, and I see a line, and the line was for the Baskin-Robbins ice cream store right next to us at Flying Colors. No one had told me it was free scoop night. I didn't know, but a lot of people knew it was free scoop night. So when I went next door and asked the franchisee about it, she told me that store gave away 900 free scoops of ice cream. And when I heard that, I thought, what's the only thing cooler than ice cream? That's comics. We can do this.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Short Box Podcast.
The Short Box Podcast is recorded live from Jacksonville, Florida.
Short Box Nation, welcome back to the podcast. Let's go. As you can probably tell, I'm feeling good, feeling great. How are you, though? You probably saw the title of this episode, and you most definitely heard the intro. You know you're in for a good time. We got a great topic today. If you're new to the show, welcome. This is the Short Box Podcast, the comic book talk show that brings you the best conversations about comic books and pop culture inspired by them. My name is Botter, and this is episode 388. And by the time this episode drops, we'll be exactly 10 days away, which is 240 hours, which is also 864,000 seconds away from Free Comic Book Day, the world's largest comic event, aka my favorite holiday, tied only with Christmas and my birthday. For the new people, Free Comic Book Day is an annual event that takes place every first Saturday in May across thousands of stores, both here in the U.S. and in comic stores around the world. It's a global event. It's truly the biggest day on the comic store retail calendar, and for good reasons. The name says it all. Free Comic Book Day. Free comic book, all in the same sentence, all right? And together, you and I will be doing more than just celebrating and gushing about how awesome this day is. We'll also be getting a crash course into how this day came to be from the man who started it all. He's like a comic book patron saint. His name should be known by every comic fan in the world. He's given us the best day of the year. He was the voice you heard in the intro. He goes by Joe Field. He's been working in comic retail for almost 35 years now, and he's got stories for days. He's a seasoned vet who can say he's rubbed elbows with the likes of Stan Lee, Jim Lee, Joe Quesada, and so many more comic icons. You're in for a good time today. You're in for a lot of great stories as well. Before we bring on our guest of honor, I'd like to give a big shout out to our incredible sponsor, Gotham City Limit, Jacksonville's premier location for comic books, collectibles, toys, and more. Even if you don't live in Jax, you can still take it to the limit by shopping their online store at GothamCityLimit.com. And of course, there's the obligatory shout out to our friends and loyal supporters that make up our Short Box family, aka our Patreon community members. We love every single one of you. Thank you so much for helping us keep the lights on. If you're someone that likes to see your friends succeed, or if you'd like to personally help us keep the lights on so we can continue creating great content, please consider joining our Patreon community. We got room for you, all right? Come on over. You can sign up for a month to see if it's a good fit for you at patreon.com/theshortbox. And as soon as you sign up, you'll be treated to rewards and perks like bonus episodes, early access to all of our content going forward, and you'll have a hand in the things we make with episode voting privileges. Sign up, check it out, and thanks again to everyone supporting us already. With all the housekeeping out the way, let's bring on our guest of honor today. It goes without saying, this man is truly a pioneer in the world of comic retail. He's been slinging comics from his very own shop, Flying Colors Comics, in Concord, California, since 1988. He's also the founder of Free Comic Book Day, the biggest event in the comic book industry. And fun fact that we'll get into much later, he's largely responsible for giving Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four, an official birthplace on the West Coast. Shortbox Nation, it's my privilege to welcome Joe Field to the show. Joe, how are you doing today, Joe?
Doing great. Thank you for that intro.
If there's ever been a guest on our show that deserves a round of loud applause, it's you, good sir. You are an OG in the comic book industry, for lack of better terms.
I wasn't always, but I am now.
You were a baby OG, now you're a full-grown OG.
Yeah.
Your shop, Flying Colors Comics, is based out of California. Were you born and raised there, or does your origin story start somewhere else?
I grew up about 10 miles away from where my shop is now. But you know, I lived in Stockton, the home of the Fantastic Four, for 15 years after I got out of college. The plan was always to try to move back closer to home, and the way we did that was to open a comic book store here.
And where'd you go to college?
I went to college at San Francisco State University. I was a broadcasting and marketing major.
Oh, okay. Wow. I'm working marketing now, and my co-host Cesar is in broadcasting himself.
All right.
And do you remember your first conscious exposure to comics, Joe? Can you remember the book or moment where you became a fan of this medium?
Well, there's a difference between when I became a fan and what I remember first. I can remember a time when my younger brother and I were visiting at my aunt's house with my mom, and my mom's sister was about 20 years older than her, and she knew that she needed to keep us busy so she could have a nice conversation with her sister. And so she bought a nice little stack of comic books. This was, now you want OG. This is OG. We're talking.
Bring it, Joe.
We're talking like 1961 maybe. And she bought a stack of comics that included things like New Terry Toons and Mighty Mouse and Deputy Dog and some of the ones that had spun off of cartoons of the day. And that kept us busy while she was able to talk with my mom. So that was my first really conscious exposure. But I didn't really become a fan until I was 11 years old. And I can give you that origin story if you like. But
Joe, we've got all day. All right, we are here for you, man. Tell us about it.
Okay. All right. So 11 years old, third day of summer, I am teaching a kid how to climb trees. I was babysitting him, and I was teaching this kid how to climb a tree. And I got about 20 to 25 feet up a tree when a branch broke, and I came down. And I broke my arm in several places and wound up in the hospital that night. And spending the night in the hospital, there were comics in the kids' ward.
Oh, wow.
And I can remember Fantastic Four number 54 there. But when I got home from the hospital, one of my best friends gave me 2 comic books to read. The other kids came in with different gifts. One kid brought a beanbag, and how much fun is that when you've got one broken arm? So another one brought one of those like paddle board things, and it's like, how do you do anything there when? Anyway, so my friend Steve, though, brought me 2 comic books. He brought me Amazing Spider-Man 51 and Fantastic Four number 65. And those are really the 2 comics that I consider to be my first comics as a fan, because I read those probably 100 times each that summer when I couldn't play baseball, couldn't jump in the swimming pool or any of that kind of stuff. All the good kid fun was out of the way, but we found comics, and that made 1967 not the summer of love for me, but it was the summer of comics.
So that was the spark to your comic fandom. Fast forward, 1988, you decide to open up Flying Colors Comics. And you said to be closer to home, but isn't there a bunch of other easier ways to be closer to home? What initially led you to the comic industry, specifically comic retail and owning your own shop? I understand the late, great Stan Lee played a role early on in your career. Can you tell us about the beginning?
So I had a few jumps in there. I spent 10 years working for a radio station doing sales and marketing.
Okay.
And in that job, I did a promotion to help publicize the radio station, the city of Stockton, California, and Marvel Comics on their 25th anniversary. And I set up a deal to ask Marvel Comics to name Stockton as the official birthplace of the Fantastic Four for their 25th anniversary. And that became a success. I don't know how many hundreds of interviews I did with that. It was a lot of fun. And from that, Stan Lee came to town and delivered the official Marvel Comics proclamation. So I had talked to him on the phone a couple of times prior to that, but that was the first time I met him in person. And after the event was over on the steps of City Hall and the signing at the comic book store, we went out to lunch, me and Stan and the actor who was playing Spider-Man that day. And at that lunch, Stan said to me, "Hey, kid, you did a really great job on this promotion."
Oh, wow.
And ever the sales guy, I said, "Well, Stan, if you ever need a PR guy, you want to give me a call." And I was really surprised when just a few months later, Stan called and said, "Hey, do you remember when you said if I ever needed a PR guy to give you a call? Well, I'm doing that right now." And so here it is, one of the guys that I really looked up to as a kid reading Marvel Comics, and he's asking me to do some work for him. And it was, so I did public relations and gathered interviews and reviews for Stan's wife, who was publishing her first novel, which was a steamy little thing called The Pleasure Palace about love on a cruise ship. And so
I was not expecting that to come out of your mouth. That's awesome.
Yeah. Her goal was to make that a TV movie of the week or miniseries or something like that, and it got optioned for that, but never made it.
Is it one of those like romance novels with like the Fabio looking guy on the cover holding like a damn?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure they could afford Fabio on the cover, but but there you go.
Yeah.
One of the fun things that came from that was that I had Stan and Joan do an interview on KGO radio in San Francisco. It was a big powerhouse news talk station. Mm-hmm. And their afternoon talk host was a guy named Jim Eason. And he was really loved interviewing Stan and Joan and had a great time. But at one point during the interview, he said, "Well, let's just pick up this book and see what it's like." And he opens up and starts reading a page. And about 2 sentences in, he says, "Oh, my. We better leave this for you to read." Yeah.
That's definitely a adults only book reading club right there.
Well, something like that.
Gotcha.
It would probably seem tame these days, but that was 1986.
Okay. Wow. This is a tangent that I don't mind staying in really quick. I was going to bring this up later, but I'm glad we got to bring this up at the top. Do you have any memories from that time or like standout interactions with Stan that stand out? Did he give you any like advice on comics and running your own shop?
He didn't give advice about running the shop because that was a couple of years after. So I was doing the PR thing and then got hired by the people who were starting WonderCon to do their advertising and promotions. And it was only at that point that I realized I'm spending more time and having more fun dealing with comics. So that's when I started to look for other jobs. And I honestly, I interviewed a lot of different places. At the behest of my father-in-law, I interviewed with a couple of advertising agencies in San Francisco, but they all said you got to start in the mailroom. Then I decided that I would try to get marketing or sales jobs with comic book publishers. So I interviewed with Marvel and DC and Eclipse and Bud Plant Distribution. And all of them said, hey, look, you've done something good here, but you have no experience in publishing.
Yeah.
So being the absolute and total control freak that I am, I thought, well, if the only way to break into the business is for me to do a business. And so I had a lot of fun working with the guys at WonderCon, and they all seemed like they were having a good time what they were doing, selling comics and building community. And so I decided that that was going to be the way to go. So my wife was in on it, and God bless her. I mean, she just said, if this is something you're going to do, let's do it right. And I got lots of good advice along the way from my father, from her father. And then we, as a family, I had 3 young daughters at the time, and now they're 3 older daughters now. But anyway, at the time, they were between the ages of 4 and 8 years old. And what we would do is we would shop different comic book stores. And as a whole family, just get out of the station wagon, go into the store, and then shop the store, meet back outside, and I would ask them what their opinions of the store were. So what did they like? What didn't they like? What would they want to see a store do that they weren't doing? That sort of thing.
Talk about a focus
group. And we took
group.
notes. Awesome focus group. That was my marketing research team. And to have 4 women, my wife and 3 young daughters, be the marketing research team, I think set us on the right path, because from the very start, we weren't going to be a hole in the wall that's for diehard fans only. It was going to be a store that was open and accessible for everyone.
Awesome.
And so the long and circuitous route from, did Stan give me any advice when we were doing the Fantastic Four in Stockton thing, to when we opened? Well, he didn't give me advice so much as he gave encouragement. As a matter of fact, on the first day we opened, which was October 3rd, 1988, when I came to open the store that day, on the answering machine, Stan had left a message congratulating us on the opening.
Wow.
And I still have a tape of that. You couldn't get off to a better start than having Stan congratulate us on the opening. And 2 years later, he was also my guest at WonderCon for the first 3 or 4 years of that event. And in 1990, before the show, when I talked to him on the phone, he said, I've been following your store, but I really want to see it. And so can we do this thing where I'll visit the store before the opening of the convention on Saturday, and you can invite some friends and some customers, but don't make it a big deal. Just keep it to like 15 or 20, and I'll sign some stuff and I'll take some pictures, but I really just want to see the store. I said, yeah, I can do that. And at that little mini event, my friend Steve, who had gotten me into comics 21 years earlier, by giving me Fantastic Four 65 and Amazing Spider-Man 51, I was able to invite him to that event and introduce him to Stan Lee. And so it was a really sweet little way to go full circle on everything.
That is so endearing. Wow. Joe, I didn't think I'd get, my soundbite in my promo clip so early on in this episode. That is so sweet. Man, that is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's great.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and take a detour right here and address the main reason you're on the show today. And that's to talk about the best day in all of comics, Free Comic Book Day. I understand that you started Free Comic Book Day in 2002. And since then, it has become the biggest day on the comic store retail calendar. Can you take me back to 2002 and not only tell me what was the catalyst for the event, but what you remember from, the very first Free Comic Book Day that took place?
It goes back further than 2002.
Okay.
In 1997, I was asked by Diamond Comic Distributors to write a piece for their year in review that they published every year. And in 1997, I proposed an industry-wide open house. And it was met with a resounding thud. I mean, there was absolutely no pickup on that whatsoever. It was a good idea at the wrong time. 1997 was the beginning of the crater of the comics market. We had lived through sort of the boom and bust of the 90s, and from about 1997 until 2001, things were really difficult in the comics business. Upheaval in distribution, number of stores. There were more stores closing than were opening. A lot of things were changing. But by the time 2001 came around, there were changes that we had gone away from the gimmicks of shiny covers and that sort of thing to actually having creative content that was attractive and was attractive to a much larger audience than what we were getting at the time. So I noticed that, and at the time I was writing articles for a magazine called Comics and Games Retailer. It was a sort of a closed circulation magazine that was sent to comic shops and people working in the comic book business. And in one of my columns, I decided to write about it. And the impetus for that was I was on a deadline one day in April of 2001. And I look out the front window of my store and I see a line. And the line was for the Baskin-Robbins ice cream store right next to us at Flying Colors. No one had told me it was Free Scoop Night. No one, I didn't know, but a lot of people knew it was Free Scoop Night. So when I went next door and asked the franchisee about it, she told me that store gave away 900 free scoops of ice cream, and that she had another store that did 1,200 free scoops of ice cream. And when I heard that, I thought, what's the only thing cooler than ice cream? That's comics. And we can do this. So I wrote the column, but rather than just sending it in and getting no reaction to it and hoping there might be some reaction to it, I asked my editor, now he's a novelist, John Jackson Miller. He writes Star Trek and Star Wars novels. But he was the editor at that time. And I asked if we could get reaction from the industry in the same issue in which my column was going to be published. And he said, yeah, we could do that. Well, we sent the column off to Diamond Comic Distributors. Their marketing VP, Roger Fletcher, responded in print after talking with a few of the key suppliers. And the initial response on that was, yeah, let's do it. And let's explore doing it. So that column got published in, I think, June of 2001. In October of 2001, there was a convention in Las Vegas, in which a lot of the publishers were making their first flights out of New York after 9/11. It was the first time the industry had any kind of an event after 9/11. And in that meeting were key people from the largest publishers, Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, a couple of executives from Diamond, a couple of executives from the publisher I worked with, including Maggie Thompson from the Comics Buyer's Guide, and me. And we sat around and we talked about, can we do this? And I had been a part of meetings before that where it all broke down into your lawyer needs to talk to our lawyer and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know if it was just because it was a few weeks after 9/11, but there was this tremendous spirit of cooperation among everyone in the room. People who had normally not been wanting to work together at all of a sudden said, we have to do this. And it was unanimous in the room that this is the thing that we need to do.
Wow. And
it was Jim Valentino, who was then the publisher at Image, who suggested that we put the event on the same weekend that the Spider-Man movie opened. And that was also kind of magnanimous on his part, because seeing a competitor's big deal happen and putting this event next to it might have made it look like it was just a Marvel event, and that has never been the case. But there have been movies tied to Free Comic Book Day weekend pretty much ever since.
Yo, this is Botter. Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I'll keep it brief. I wanted to let you know about a massive sale we have going on over at the Shortbox store on all of our merchandise and apparel. That's theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com. You can now save 20% off your entire order using the discount code YOO, Y-O-O. So if you've been waiting for the right time to finally buy that gauntlet snapback, or if you ever wanted to buy any of the shirts you see me wear on the podcast, well, now's your chance to get them for a steal. We still have a few sizes left of everything, but they won't last long, and once they're gone, they are gone. And then I mentioned that all of our apparel is screen printed on high quality material. None of that heat transfer or direct to garment stuff. Our shirts are some of the most comfortable ones you'll ever wear, and the hats look even better in person. So wear your support for the Shortbox Nation proudly, knowing that you're going to look damn good doing it. Get to theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com as soon as you can, and don't forget to use that discount code YOO, Y-O-O, to save 20% off your entire order. All of this information can be found in this episode's show notes if you want to get there faster. Thanks for not pressing fast forward. Now back to the show. Wow. You know, I'll be honest, Joe. I was today years old when I realized it's not by accident or coincidence that every single Free Comic Book Day event, outside maybe a few years and exceptions, has a line with a major comic book and superhero movie release. I thought we were just always lucky. I was like, oh, it's going to be, Guardians comes out this weekend,
There was one year, I think it was 2004, 2005, whenever the first Hulk movie came out, there was I don't want to call it a debate, but there was a vote. Retailers voted between my choice, which was to keep it on the first Saturday in May, or we could vote with Joe Quesada, who was running Marvel at the time, and put it on the July 4th weekend when the Hulk movie was coming out. And no surprise, I lost that battle. I don't have the clout that Marvel has, so I knew I was going to lose that battle, but it came back to the first Saturday in May the following year and stayed there ever since. So
wow,
I probably won that war.
Quesada, you won the battle, but I won the war in the long run. I like it.
That's right.
So first Free Comic Day event aligned with the first Spider-Man movie in 2002. I believe last year's aligned with Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, and this year's Free Comic Day event is going to align with the new Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I was curious, Joe, what's your favorite comic/superhero movie of all time? And have you ever been invited to like a movie premiere or rubbed elbows with an actor or a cast of a superhero movie?
I haven't gotten those invitations. I wish I was that connected. Maybe when they do a movie of my own superhero, Captain Four Color. Yes, but we'll get that done. Because, Captain Four Color is the protector of comics and all those people who love them. So it's a natural for a movie. Anyway, no, I have not rubbed shoulders with any of those people. We're a little bit further away from LA than that. But my favorite one, honestly, if I'm going to give you two answers.
That's fine. Hit it.
Okay. So that first Spider-Man movie in 2002 it still sticks with me as not a great movie, but a great experience. It was the first time we were able to see web spinning on the screen and slinging across the city and all of those things that were really surprising to every audience member at that time. Mm-hmm. It was, and I had conversation with Stan Lee over the course of 20 years before that, 15 years before that, in which, there were numerous attempts at making different Spider-Man movies. There was James Cameron. There was other Canon Films. There were a number of attempts at it. And I can remember being in his office one day, and he had two Spider-Man scripts on the desk, and he just let me thumb through them. That was 1987, maybe. So 15 years from that point until the point when it actually made it into the theaters. And when I saw that first Spider-Man movie, I was not only happy for me as a Spider-Man fan who loved the character for a long time, but I was really happy that Stan finally got something. That it wasn't a cheesy Hulk meets Thor TV movie or something like that. It was, the Spider-Man TV show where he's throwing ropes instead of webs, and the Captain America TV movies where he's on a motorcycle and
fighting in that.
He looks like all of that. Think of all of it, I also think of the first Fantastic Four movie, which I love, but has never been officially released, the Roger Corman movie. Okay, it's the only Fantastic Four movie that actually got the characters right, but got them cheap. And that's the only problem with it. So anyway, so that's that Spider-Man, seeing it with the crowd the night before Free Comic Book Day, that was awesome.
I bet.
It had never happened before, but when I walked into the theater with my family, actually it was with my friend Steve to see it. We needed to see it together. The crowd started to applaud when they saw me come into the theater, and it blew my mind. It was like, I'm just a businessman. I'm doing my thing.
Yeah.
I don't go for that kind of stuff, but it was really sweet because they knew what it meant to have the movie and Free Comic Book Day happening. It was like we were putting geek culture on the map.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, damn, you got me tearing up over here, Joe. Jeez. Joe, I'm glad you mentioned the first Spider-Man, because personally for me, it's still like a top 5 favorite superhero comic book movie. I mean, it was a moment, like you said, being a long time, comic fan. And when that movie came out, I was like really, into collecting comics, especially with my dad, who got me into it. And Spider-Man was my jam. So big moment for me. But I remember that the same sentiment you just shared, from the perspective of being a comic retailer and seeing, this movie do this character right, was the same. That was also echoed by a good friend of mine and the guy who owned the shop where I, had my first pull list. Big shout out to James Bascom of Universe of Superheroes. But I remember him saying the same thing, saying how much of just a moment it was for him to see, this movie and seeing Spider-Man on the big screen and feeling like validated. So that's awesome to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I said there were two.
Yep.
And the other one was the original Superman movie, the Richard Donner Superman movie.
Classic.
It's a total classic, still holds up to this day.
Yep.
got Superman right, and that, even though I wasn't in the business at that time, some of my retailer friends who were in the business at that time say that caused as much of a sensation as the Batman movie did in 1989
Wow.
and Spider-Man did in 2002. So there have been watershed moments that have brought people into comic shops, and whether it's good or bad, most of those moments have to do with other media. So that may be the ticket to finding a larger audience. But I think now that we have so much content in so many different media, in so many different ways, that things are maybe a little watered down now. And there's the thing about watching something on the screen, whether it's a TV screen or computer or a movie screen, it's passive entertainment. Comics are aggressive entertainment. We're in it. We're moving the speed of the panel. We fill in what's in the gutters in between the panels. We put the voices of the characters in our heads. Well, although the artists and the writers are truly the directors of the comics, we are sort of co-directors as readers, and you don't get that with any other entertainment medium.
Well said. Joe, you've got, you're giving me so many sound bites and things I will be regurgitating. Next time I've got to defend or talk about why comic books is the best artistic medium out there. Now, this next question might be a little rhetorical, considering who I'm talking to, but I do ask this with a little bit of sincerity. And that's, are you familiar, and has it like really dawned on you, the global impact and reach that Free Comic Book Day has? Like, are you familiar with Europe's version of Free Comic Book Day, which was new to me, Gratis Comic Tag?
Oh, that's the one in Germany. Yeah, there have been a few different ones in different countries. Quick story, maybe, I don't know, 10 years ago, I was at the San Diego Comic-Con and someone tapped me on the shoulder and in a heavy Italian accent said thank you, and introduced himself, and I wish I could remember who it was. It might have been a retailer, it might have been a publisher, but he gave me a short stack of comics in Italian that had the Free Comic Book Day logo on them.
Wow.
And I know that's happened in a number of different countries all over the world. I think the last few years we've seen a little bit of slippage because of the pandemic. So we may not be in as many countries this year as we were in 2018 or 2019, but now it's about sort of rebuilding and getting people back out to these great community events that are Free Comic Book Days at shops everywhere.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised and blown away that countries like Germany, Austria, and Switzerland have all adopted Free Comic Book Day. That's awesome to hear, like the global scale of this.
The American versions of the domestic comics that are done for Free Comic Book Day have gotten into as many as 65 different countries around the world.
Wow.
And I believe it'll still be the case this year, but Free Comic Book Day is the world's largest comic book related event. And at its height, and I'm not sure where things are because of the pandemic and all of the craziness with that, but at its height, we had 1.5 million people attending Free Comic Book Day events all over the world. That does blow my mind a little bit.
Yeah, talk about some stats. That's awesome. All right, what was also remarkable to learn as was preparing for this interview and reading up on you, Joe, it was awesome to learn the number of comic creators that, early on in their careers that have walked through your doors or did signings at Flying Comics. Most notably, Jim Lee. He did his first professional store signing at your shop 3 weeks after he opened. And then I understand that he came back in 2003 to do another in-store signing for Free Comic Book Day that year. As a huge Jim Lee fan, I'd probably camp out overnight, maybe multiple nights, to meet him at my local comic shop. So I was curious, what's been your most memorable run-in or interaction of a comic creator? Who else have you had, walk through your doors, or, have you seen early on in their career?
Well, okay, so Jim has done a number of signings for us over the years. Besides the one in 2003 and the one back in 1988, he also did the signing for X-Men #1 when it came out in 1991. Oh, wow. We partnered on a deal to raise funds for literacy volunteers with the release of X-Men #1. He was here in 1996 for the release of Fantastic Four, when the Heroes Reborn was done with Marvel. And he was here for our 25th anniversary in 2013. And I know I'm missing a few in there because early on, when Flying Colors first opened, Jim was living in this area. He lived in Berkeley for a bit, and there would be times when different groups of artists would just show up and start drawing on a Friday night and hang out here. And we had Ken Hooper and Jeff Johnson and Derek Robertson and Brandon McKinney and Jim Lee, and it just go all the way down the line. There were all Dan Brereton lived locally and was had a pull box here for a long time. So Arthur Adams is a regular here now, and
wow.
Liam Sharp lives close by and will be for the next couple of months before he heads back to England. And don't miss, we're going to have this will run after we have our Liam Sharp farewell event in April. But so I've been very fortunate in that there's been a lot of great talent come through here, and I'm not even there's so much other talent. The guy who created our character here, Captain Four Color, is a cartoonist named Jeff Bonnevert, who has a career that goes back to 1978 with
that's cool.
Star Reach Productions and different things. So, there's I think what it is that we've been able to attract those artists and writers working in the business because the shop is what it is. It's definitely a place where you could take your girlfriend, you could take your best friend, you could take your family. It's not. It's a shop for everyone, and you don't need the secret handshake to get in. And that's less the case these days as it was way back when. But I think what we did is we just created an environment here that was open and friendly and a lot of energy behind it. So that was attractive to a lot of people.
Speaking of, creating a welcoming environment, I want to go back to that Fantastic Four birthplace story for a second, because
sure.
I understand Stockton, California in 2020, I believe, was voted most diverse city in the U.S., if I'm not mistaken. And I mentioned that I'm gonna tie this all together, listeners. I mentioned that because you've already told us the campaign that you ran in 1986 to make Stockton, California, the birthplace of the Fantastic Four. And when we say that, to dig into that a little deeper, what we're saying is that Stockton, California, in comic book canon, the Fantastic Four, when their ship crash lands after they get bombarded with radiation. They land in Stockton, California, and they decide, we're going to use our powers for good. We'll become the Fantastic Four, is what we're saying, right, Joe?
Correct. Yeah.
That campaign from 1986 has kind of reared its head in 2023. I understand there is a present day petition floating around, backed by the mayor of Stockton, California, calling on the powers that be, whether at Disney, Marvel, whatever it is, to bring the Fantastic Four's MCU live action debut to Stockton, California, to tie it in with its comic book roots. How do you feel about that?
I'm kind of excited by it. I have no idea what the chances are of it happening, but one of the things that sort of tickles me a little bit is that since 1986, when Marvel delivered the proclamation and put Stockton into the 25th anniversary issue of Fantastic Four number 296, since that time, the Stockton, as the official birthplace of the Fantastic Four, has been written into the Stockton City Plan every year.
Wow.
So for 37 years, a part of the promotion of Stockton as a city revolves around the Fantastic Four. I don't think there's another city in the world that has something like that.
I doubt it.
And so now the powers that be in Stockton want to, bring it around again. And what Stan was able to do in 1986, they're asking to honor that legacy and do something with the Fantastic Four movie in Stockton, whether it's included in the movie somehow, shoot a scene there, mention it in the script, whatever it is just to kind of tie things up and make sure that Stockton and the Fantastic Four are still, locked together.
There we go. Prior to Stockton, California, it was some fictional city by the name of Central City, right? Where the Fantastic Four formed, right? And you guys gave them the boot.
Well, here's what we did. In Fantastic Four #1, way back in 1961, the first or second panel says in Central City. And Stan said to media back in 1986 that he thought it was supposed to say in the center of the city because his idea was to place all the superheroes in New York City. But when it was printed, it came out in Central City. And then a number of years later, writer Roger Stern brought this Central City back into the Marvel Universe and amended it to Central City, California. And so then in 1985, leading up to the 25th anniversary, Marvel was doing those Marvel Saga books. And in the Marvel Saga book, it mentioned Central City, California. And I read that and I went, hey, we got to do something about this because all of their other characters are based in real cities, New York, Los Angeles. The West Coast Avengers at that point, I think, were in Palos Verdes, California. So that's what spurred the idea to have them recognize Stockton as Central City, California, because there is no Central City, California. But if you stick your finger in the middle of a map of of California, you're going to hit Stockton. And so that seemed to work. And that whole thing was a lot of fun. There were all kinds of twists and turns to that because there was a storyline in which they were going to shoot Central City, California, 30,000 years into the future. And while that still happened, it did not get rid of Stockton as the official birthplace. They just sort of changed things up a little bit. And it was also at a time when John Byrne was finishing his run on Fantastic Four, so new talent was coming into it, or different talent, really good talent, but different talent. And so the campaign initially, I think, was looked at by Marvel editorial as sort of a bother, but then all of a sudden there's publicity all over the country about it. Every TV and newspaper was doing something about it, and they couldn't ignore it. So they got behind it, and the editor of Fantastic Four at the time is Mike Carlin, who then shortly went over and was an editor at DC Comics. And I met him shortly when I was starting to do some things in comics in 1986, 87. I met him at one of the conventions, and I apologized to him. He said, "Hey, don't worry about it. You helped us sell a lot of comics."
He's probably. I should be thanking you, Joe. I should be thanking you. All right, I'd almost dropped the ball on that awesome PR stunt. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Right now, I can't recall details off the top of my head how long that petition is going to be circulating, but I will include a link to it in the show notes. Sure. If you want to support bringing the MCU Fantastic Four live action debut to Stockton, California, which I can agree. I think we can all agree. We got to do it for Joe. All right, let's bring it full circle, folks,
and do it for the nation's most diverse city. I don't live in Stockton anymore, and I have not lived there for 30 years, but it's a city I still have a deep fondness for because that's where my 3 daughters were born. That's where my career got started. It's where we did the Fantastic Four thing. And there's a lot to recommend about the city.
Look, all my Jax-based listeners, I got to talk to you guys about bringing Spider-Man's birthplace to Jacksonville, Florida. We can make it happen. So fast forward to to today, right? You've been running Flying Colors Comics for the last 35 years. What is
Almost,
it?
yep.
What is it about the comic industry that's kept you going? Do you still have that same childhood kind of wide-eyed exuberance and view on comics? Is that what keeps you going?
Oh, I think I'm an old jaded dude now, but I will tell you, I will tell you that the thing about comics and this business that keeps me going is that it feels like a puzzle that needs to be solved new every day. And there is something about it that I just feel like we still haven't fully broken through to everyone. And I really believe that comics are for everybody. And even Free Comic Book Day is a big deal. We get 1 million people to show up for those events all around the world. But that's only 1 million people, and there's over 6 billion people in the world. So we still have a long ways to go. And I believe that comics are for everyone, and that anyone who enjoys reading can come into a store and find something they're going to want to come back to week after week and month after month. And so we're constantly trying to solve that problem of how do we do that.
What do you think is comic retailers' biggest challenge in this day and age? And maybe that's a loaded question, and maybe there's a lot to it. But I mean, can you deconstruct? Does one immediately kind of come to mind that you're still seeing? Like you mentioned, comic shops and the industry being a puzzle. Is there still that one elusive thing that's just within grasp or maybe outside of the grasp?
Well, yeah. One of the big challenges that we have is that the only real exclusive that comic shops have are periodical comics, are the monthlies that come out. And most publishers now use those monthlies as a way to amortize the cost of making trade paperbacks and graphic novels. So largely we don't get complete stories in monthly comics. And in some cases, we don't even get a full scene in some monthly comics. And so I think there's a value proposition that really needs to be addressed in terms of how do we put value into the periodicals other than making a zillion variant covers, which is running its course really fast. So I think that's one of the concerns, is that comic shops now are just part of a much larger market for comics, and that larger market includes everything from the evil empire Amazon to mom and pop bookstores to eBay or whatever. It used to be that comic shops as a specialty market were important enough to publishers that they would try to help us a lot more than what we get now. And I'm not sure where we're at in terms of being able to make that seem better, but I do know that's an area that the industry needs a lot of work.
Well said. And I'm sure, like I said, that's a loaded question. I'm sure that could be an episode of its own, but I do appreciate the insight. Let's keep it lighthearted and go back to Free Comic Book Day, right? So I'm looking at the list of comic books coming out for Free Comic Book Day or being offered on Free Comic Book Day, May 6th. It looks like a list of at least maybe 50 books. What are some standout titles that you think someone listening right now should make an effort to go ahead and grab out of all of the books being offered?
So the way we do it, the way we set it up in our shop is that we have a counter that is set up where all of the all ages comics are on top, and then down below are the teen comics, and the furthest below are the ones just for adults. And every person who comes through has a staff member who helps guide them to the comics that are most appropriate for them. So when I talk about which ones I'm most looking forward to or what should people grab, they really need to grab something that if they're a current reader, that they're not currently reading.
Okay.
Try something new. Man. There's, Free Comic Book Day came from Baskin Robbins, and they got 31 flavors. We do too in comics. So we got to try some different flavors every once in a while.
Well said.
I get excited seeing how people respond to the day. I try not to push certain things to anyone for the day, because I want it to be a fresh experience for everybody. And I don't think there's some good content in a lot of different comics, but it's all dependent upon what kind of stuff you like and what have you already read that you don't need to read again, or want to read again. It cuts both ways. So rather than single out any specific comic that's going to be coming out on Free Comic Book Day, what I would suggest is that everybody who attends a Free Comic Book Day goes in with an open mind to try something that they have not tried before, particularly if they're a current comic book reader. New readers, make sure that you engage the staff in the store to channel your interest into something that you'll want to come back to time and time again.
An unbiased and accepting point of view and a fantastic, pragmatic answer from Joe Field, ladies and gents. I am not unbiased or pragmatic. And I want to say, out of this entire list, there is one or two that piques my interest.
Tell me.
The I Am Stan graphic biography by Tom Scully, who did a Jack Kirby one a few years ago. I'm very interested in his take, and especially us bringing Stan Lee this whole conversation. I'm very interested in that, and the Frazetta-verse. The fact that Frank Frazetta, all of his paintings and prints and these characters that we've all kind of grown to love from these single, it's not a comic book of the Death Dealer or his characters, but they're making a Frazetta-verse, a comic book universe of his characters. That piques my interest a lot.
Well, what they've been doing with Opus Comics does the Frazetta-verse stuff, and there's a Death Dealer comic. There are 3 or 4 different comics in that line, and this is the one that sort of gets them all in the same space. And those have been met with a lot of excitement from fans, and that's definitely worth looking at. And I think it's great to just keep the Frazetta legacy going, because he was such an amazing artist who got his start doing comic books. And not a lot of people know he did everything from funny animal comics to romance to sci-fi to crazy stuff. And then he had that sort of second career doing all those book covers and fine art. So
yeah, and that's not even talking about all the epic, heavy metal and rock, music covers that he's done, album covers. Joe, are you still? So how involved are you with Free Comic Book Day to this? I guess to this point, like you mentioned earlier that it's being run by it's kind of handled by Diamond Comics. Like how involved are you still in it?
Involved, but not on a daily basis by any stretch. So every year I have a committee of retailers, and we help Diamond choose the comics that get into Free Comic Book Day. Sifting through those applications is a crazy deal, because every publisher under the sun wants to be a part of Free Comic Book Day, but we just can't fit them all. And with the sort of splintering of distribution, that's also changed things, because the list of Diamond comics, you don't see the comics that DC is doing for the event, for instance. And some things are available from one distributor and may not be available from the other. But it's still an event that brings the whole industry together, and that's awesome.
So when you say you're sifting through applications, are you sifting through like actual comic books, like drafts or something like that?
Oh, I wish. No.
That's where I was going.
On occasion, we'll see something in a PDF form, but most of the applications are just, several pages of information, and in some cases they're filled out very fully, and in other cases they're not at all. And we can see who really wants to be a part of it and who doesn't really know what they're doing. It's there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of information there. I'd love to change that whole process if I could, and the way I would change it is rather than allowing every publisher to apply to be a part of it and then disallowing some of them and voting other ones in, I would love to have my retailer committee be able to go to publishers and say, this is what we want from you.
Oh, wow.
A lot of times retailers know what's going to move the needle best, right?
You guys are the industry.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But I do think that there's room for looking at changes like that within the overall FCBD structure. And, we've been at it now for 22 years, so things do change. The really bizarre thing about Free Comic Book Day is that it started as a sales promotion and has become a cultural holiday. And that has some things within it that are pretty interesting in that because it is this cultural holiday, and yes, people do get free comics. Yeah, they're coming into the stores for the free comics, but there are an awful lot of people who only visit their comic shop on Free Comic Book Day to get the free stuff and then don't show up because they want to be part of a cultural holiday.
Yeah, it's
or they just want free, or they want free stuff. As a sales promotion, it has worked very well. I'm very pleased that many retailers tell me that Free Comic Day is always their best sales day of the year. But that wasn't initially how I envisioned it. I envisioned it as a way, as that open house kind of a thing. Bring everybody in, give them something for free, and have them make the rational decision about, do I like this? Do I want to come back to it? And if we give them the right stuff, the answer to that question is always going to be yes. But it's now become almost like Free Comic Book Day has become like a convention that happens in 2,000 different places all at once. And that's a cool thing. And it makes it a cultural holiday, but there are things in there that make sense from a business perspective and other things that you just have to let go and let people have the fun with it that they're going to have, and know that maybe we're giving them some stuff that they just want to have because they were here and that we'll never see them again. But every year that we do Free Comic Book Day here, I do a little poll, and I find that usually around 20% of the people who visit my shop on Free Comic Book Day have never been here before. So I think there's still a lot of untapped potential in terms of how many people could be visiting comic shops on a regular basis.
Another layer to the puzzle, it seems. Interesting.
Yeah.
Speaking of folks that have their finger on the pulse, I don't have a committee, but I do have an awesome local comic shop that I shop at, Gotham City Limit. It's run by maybe one of the best, with all respect to you, Joe, it is run by one of the best comic shop owners that I know. His name is Ben Kingsbury. And when I told him who I was having on the show and how it aligns to Free Comic Book Day, he was very excited to chime in and wanting to be involved in this episode. So he sent in some questions for you, Joe, from one retailer to another, right? And I'm going to go ahead and play these for you.
Okay.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, Shortbox listeners. I'm Ben K, representing Gotham City Limit, Jacksonville, Florida. And I've got a little story for you. Gotham City Limit's been around for about 6 years. And when we first opened, we actually used Free Comic Book Day as an official grand opening of the shop. I didn't, at the time, even know I had Joe Field to thank for that. So in honor of the creator of the best day of the year being on the Short Box, here's 3 questions I have for you, Joe. First, congrats on the longevity of your comic shop. Over that time, is there one item/possession you have bought, traded, or been gifted that you would never sell?
Good question, Ben. Let's start with that one, Joe.
Yes. Early on, before the original art market got crazy, I had a young man who was working for me and was taking art classes at the local community college. And his art teacher asked him a question. He said, I have a piece of art that I was given when I visited the Marvel bullpen in 1967. I know it's by Jack Kirby, do you think your boss could sell it for me? And without hesitating, my young staff member at the time said, yes, I know he could sell it for you. And so not having seen what it was, I just knew that it was a Fantastic Four page and it was a splash page. And I knew that I had several people who I knew were art buyers at the time that I could go to them and just get a price or a bid, basically. So I called several people and said, don't know what page it is, don't know what issue it's from. All I know is it's a splash page by Jack Kirby from Fantastic Four. What are you willing to pay? And they each gave me bids. And then I saw the piece. The piece was the first page of Stan Lee and Jack Kirby I ever read. It was the first page to Fantastic Four number 65 that I read when I was in bed with a broken arm.
That is serendipitous on so many levels.
It's right there. You're looking at it right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. It hangs in my office to this day. I had to outbid all those other art buyers, and I wasn't an art buyer. And it took me months to pay for it. And if it had come my way today, there's no way I would be able to afford it.
That is hilarious.
But that was before Jack Kirby had passed away. It was before his art had really taken a huge jump. But in a totally serendipitous way, I own the first page of Lee and Kirby I ever read.
That is amazing. Wow. That is amazing. Joe, you've just got stories for days, man.
Believe me.
All right. I think Ben has got 2 more questions.
Okay.
Next, and this is a 2-parter here. You recently tweeted that your wife and daughters are the humble brag best part of your life. Is your family also a part of your business? And next, when hiring new staff for your awesome comic shop, what's the most important thing you look for? Joe, thanks for all you've done for the comic community and laying the foundation for people like me to live out our passion on a daily basis. We couldn't appreciate you more. Another week has come and gone, and I'm still Ben K, representing Gotham City Limit in Jacksonville, Florida. If you're around Jacksonville on Saturday, May 6th, stop by Gotham City Limit for a free comic book day party that we hope would make Joe proud.
Ever the salesman, Ben. Ever the salesman.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for that. That means a lot. So is my family part of the business? Well, yes, they are. They're still my consultants after all this time. Awesome. All 3 of my daughters have worked in the business at one point or another. My oldest daughter, Michelle, did backroom stuff, filing and doing entries into various logs. That was way back when. My middle daughter, Jenny, actually worked here for several years full-time after college and before she became a flight attendant for Southwest. Oh, cool. And my youngest daughter, Cindy, is worked here. She was the Sunday girl for a good couple of years, and all of them have worked free comic book day events. Cindy now is a recording artist, and she's doing pretty well. She's in the ambient music world, so you want to look up Marine Eyes. That's a plug I'll give her. Is that she's very, very well respected in that segment of the music world, and I'll tell you a story, and this will tie right back. Okay, 3 years ago, she gave a lot of her music, or put a lot of her music with a licensing company that would sell music into to commercials or applications with video games or TV shows or whatever, and she got just one hit off of that, and it was to use a piece of her music, and I believe the song was called "Here on Earth," and the company that bought it used it as a background for an interview on a Stan Lee audiobook.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
this was just after Stan passed away. I think it was 2019 that she sold this piece. And Stan has these books coming out called A Trick of Light that are audible audiobooks. And behind a Stan Lee interview, that's one of the bonus features on the Trick of Light audiobook, is my daughter's music. And it just blows my mind when I think about it, because I have this great photo about her. You may have seen this online if you were looking for different things, but there's a photo of my wife and daughters with Stan Lee at WonderCon in about 1988. And my youngest daughter was maybe 4 years old at the time, and she's kind of like snuggling up to Stan Lee's leg in this photo. And to see that her first commercial music sale was used in a Stan Lee thing, all of these things kind of come full circle.
Yeah. Wow. Adventitious is the phrase that comes to mind. That is an awesome story. Wow. You got a badass family, Joe. That is great. Hell yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. My wife works in the business almost every day. She does all the backroom stuff. She does.
Oh, cool.
We just finished sending the tax stuff off to our accountant. She did all of that. She's the one who allows me to kind of do my thing on the sort of creative side of how we set the store up and what promotions we do and that sort of thing. So, yeah. And what do I look for when I'm looking for new staff? Heck, I've had a difficult time finding new staff, particularly here in California, which is a really difficult job market right now. But I look for people who are outgoing, who know a little bit about comics or are willing to learn a lot about comics, people who can be friendly, who can be honest, who can respect that this is a family business and this is how we make our living, and want to be a part of a really special community along with their job.
Well said. Those are some awesome traits to have. Ben, man, thank you so much for the questions. Jax-based listeners, you guys better be at Gotham City Limit May 6th for Free Comic Book Day, all right? I want to see you guys in person. Joe, it has been a fantastic opportunity to chat with you. I think I speak on I'm going to echo everything Ben said, but I'm also going to speak on behalf of the Shortbox Nation, and thanking you for everything you've done for comic books, for giving us your time, for giving all of us in comics the best holiday, ever, the best day ever. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate that, and a lot of that credit goes to Diamond. They've really done a tremendous amount of work over the years, and I may be the sort of public face of Free Comic Book Day, but there are a lot of people behind the scenes there who've done a lot of work and really deserve some credit.
Well said. Big shout outs to the behind the scene folks for sure. Joe, I'm going to have links to your socials. I'm also going to have a link to Flying Colors Comics as well for all of our California and West Coast listeners in case they want to stop by the shop. That'll all be in the show notes, as well as that petition, all right, to make Stockton, California the birthplace of the MCU Fantastic Four. That'll be in the show notes. But do you have any parting words? Do you have anything you want to plug? Like, this is your chance. Any last words?
Yeah. Okay. So since a lot of this is springs out of Free Comic Book Day, what I'd ask people to do, if you're planning to go to Free Comic Book Day, bring somebody with you. Bring a friend, bring a parent, bring a kid, bring a neighbor. Bring somebody with you who's never been to the local comic shop, who doesn't know how much fun you have there, who doesn't know what the community is like, but bring them along with you, because comics are best when they're shared. It may be a really solitary medium in terms of the creation, where the writers and artists are locked up in their places doing their things, but they get to see the fans during cons or whatever. Comics is really a community, and the way to keep that community healthy is to keep visiting your local comic shop on a regular basis and to bring friends with you when you do visit. I hope to inspire all of the listeners here to get out there and bring their friends to Free Comic Book Day as well.
Hell yeah. Awesome advice. Joe, thank you so much, man. You have a good rest of your weekend and have a terrific Free Comic Book Day as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
And there you have it, Shortbox Nation. That is our episode for you today. Thank you so much for hanging out. If you've made it this far, I think it's safe to say you enjoyed today's episode. I think you enjoyed the show. And I'm going to ask for one small favor. Help us spread the word, all right? Share this episode with a friend or someone you know that loves comics as much as we do. And if you're feeling extra generous, all right, if you really want to help us out, feel free to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It won't cost you a single penny. It might cost you maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds if you're a fast typer. It really helps us get the word out about the podcast. Thank you in advance. You know what else I want you to do? I want you to go to Free Comic Book Day next Saturday, May 6th. Whether you go to your favorite local comic shop or if you just go to a shop you've never been to or one that's close to you, plan to go to Free Comic Book Day. I mean, it's Free Comic Book Day. I mean, what other motivation do you need? And I want you to take Joe's advice, right? Try to take someone with you, whether it's a friend, family, loved one, or a stranger. Take someone with you. Don't go alone. Bring someone with you so they can see the joy of Free Comic Book Day and comic books in general. Do that for me. And as far as next week's show, I'm going to go ahead and give you a forecast of things lined up. By the time this episode drops, I will hopefully have recorded an episode with Drew and Walt. Me and Drew are going down to Orlando to visit the big homie Walt. So you know we're going to bring the equipment and record a little pod that way. So you got that to look forward to. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is on the horizon as well. I believe that'll premiere next weekend, same weekend as Free Comic Book Day. So you know we'll have a review of the movie as well. Patreon subscribers will go ahead and get the review first and foremost. And that won't, Drew. Our Patreon community is eating pretty good, right? They're getting all these first dibs on all these episodes I'm talking about. And if everything pans out, I should be interviewing one of my favorite comic artists that is currently in the biz doing the damn thing. I'm talking about Mike Del Mundo. But, you know, fingers crossed it all works out, the timing and scheduling. But if it does all work out, you guys are going to be hearing me chat with the incomparable Mike Del Mundo. All right, if you're unfamiliar, do yourself a favor. Google image search, all right? The dude is awesome, and I'm looking forward to chatting with him. So a lot of exciting things lined up for the Short Box. All you got to do is just tune in every Wednesday. So that's your homework assignment, all right? And a lot of fun homework, all right? Go to Free Comic Book Day, leave us a rating and review, and come back to this podcast feed next week and the week after for all these great episodes we got lined up. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Go read your comic books and continue to make mine and yours Short Box. I'll talk to you next Wednesday. Peace.